Hello, and today we are going to be looking at the IBM Cognos Proven Practices. This is a session on the listing all subsets per dimension in an IBM Cognos TM1 server. This is one of a suite of different proven practices provided by IBM. Some of them date back to a fair while back, so we're looking at 2012. Still contains a lot of useful information and a lot of potential for helping you to maintain your systems, depending upon what kind of activities you want to run on your subsets. So I'm not going to read through the whole of this documentation. We've got the link that's going to be provided with the video where we can read into it and look at all of the details that are inside. But ultimately what this whole process is going to do is produce two dimensions, one that's going to list all of my dimension names and one that's going to list all of my subsets, and then it's going to loop through those and then produce a CSV file which is going to list my subsets against my dimensions. So if I just scroll down, and we can see that it's just going to give you all of the instructions about what you need to do. It's got all of the code here. It tells you to stick it all into the prologue of a TI process. So that's something that you can schedule and you can run at however often that you want to do any maintenance or analysis on your subsets. And then ultimately it's going to spit out a CSV file into a chosen location. It does have a section at the end regards to importing the CSV file into Cognos Insight. I wouldn't advise that you do this, as it's Cognos Insight has now been deprecated and not available, but you can use the logic to apply it into any visualization tool you've got. Excel is perfectly fine if you want to use the same. So let's go into perspectives and have a look at our TI process. So I've created a TI process called subset export, and then in my parameters I've got my data directory, which is request, and the output file location. So I'm running this on the default planning samples system that's available in the samples folder, and then I'm going to just export it into my documents folder into an IBM Proven Practices. Now in my prologue I've indented this code a little bit just to make it a little bit more readable. I prefer that. There's a number of different enhancements that we can make to this that I can see already, but this, for the purpose of this video, we're looking to kind of replicate exactly what IBM produced and said. Now there are a few different enhancements that can come out. Recently there's been a security bug in 209 where some MDX subsets and have security set on them. Fortunately it's been covered, but there is certainly wiggle room to enhance this system or this process. So if I run this process and I've set my default, so that has completed successfully, I can look into my planning sample implementation and see that I've got an all subsets dimensions now created, and then I've also got a dimension names. Again, that could be a control dimension, so you could utilize something that already exists. And more importantly, we've now got our output. So I've got my subset count file, so I'm going to open this file up, and then I'm going to really, what I like to look for here is whether we've got any subset names that relate to any bug fixing or any issues where users potentially sort of come back and said it's not working the way we want it to, or there's some other complications, or whether we've got any opportunity to replace some subsets with maybe some more useful MDX based dynamic subsets. So to maybe replace 5 or 10 subsets with one which runs off some control cube, something along those lines. So we'll have some videos to sort of show that kind of functionality in the future. So it's already, I can see here on my planning business unit, I've got a subset named report 1. So you may name your reports in your organization report 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but that's, for me, that's not got sort of, maybe it hasn't got the business terminology you'll use, and it doesn't tell me as a user fresh coming into here what that relates to. So there's a candidate for renaming that subset for me, at least to have a look at it. We have a number of different other lines here. We've got a test expand down, so that again looks like it's a development based subset, something that perhaps doesn't need to exist in your production system, so is a candidate for removal. We have some duplication, so there's probably some decent reasoning for there's some potential overlap in some of these. We've got a total year and a total, so maybe that doesn't necessarily identify it fully for your users, so there's a candidate to have a look at those. They may have some enhancements available, and then we've got a lot of time-based potential overlap here, or duplication, something that maybe we can set a current year or a prior year MDX-based subset, which could then replace a lot of these, and so it means that all of your reports will automatically roll forward, so you don't have to have this slow build up over time. So we can see if this planning sample system was still in use today from basis here, then we would have 50, 60, 70 different subsets, which it starts to get very messy and it's not so usable. So we can already see here that it can produce some useful output. If you're not used to using loops in TM1 systems, again, this is going to give you that kind of starting point to examine them. So all in all, I think it's a decent start to a suite of utility reports. Thank you for listening.